Hi everyone. Today I'll be talking about healthcare inequities as a theoretical perspective of a social problem. To start, healthcare equity and inequity is defined by the World Health Organization as something that implies that ideally everyone should have a fair opportunity to attain their full health potential and that no one should be disadvantaged from achieving this potential. As you can see in the photo, on the left side is something that could describe equality, and on the right, equity. And as you can see, equality, every single person is given the same size box. Everyone is equal. But when we look at equity, the shorter person is given more boxes so that they can all see across the fence. That is being equitable, and that is equitable healthcare when we talk about giving a patient a way to have their healthcare taken care of like everyone else in the system. From a functionalist perspective, there are societal roles that take place, and it looks something like a patient is accountable for their own health care and for obtaining those services, but those services need to be made available to them. So, from a functionalist perspective, those services need to be available. The patient can use them. Now, if they become incredibly ill and are not able to take care of themselves, at that point, then the society or the community would step into place and use those community services to take care of that patient. So each person or each member in the community has a different role, and they all wrap into how that patient can have equitable care. Not every single person is the same. Not every single person has the same life story. So being equitable in healthcare is really the ideal way to be. Some statistics on healthcare inequities. So the first, I want to talk about rural locations, specifically Appalachia. There's an increased mortality rate, including premature deaths, also in infants. There's increase in preventable care that's not taking place. And then there's a decrease in the follow-up care needed after services rendered. Also, interpreter services, that's another area where inequitable care does happen quite frequently. And it's noted that 46 million people who do not speak English as their primary language. There's also a lack of interpreters on hand. Personnel actions, decisions, we all have personal bias, so making sure that we're checking that at the door before we walk into work is really important. Also, medical errors and translations can be incorrect if we have a family or clergy translate for the patient. I can speak to the interpreter services pretty heavily from a personal experience. We had a patient present for an MRI recently, and they presented to registration. They were able to get through by giving their name, date of birth, and address. We were able to check the patient in. They did have a family member with them. And then that patient ended up going to the MRI department. And the MRI tech did not use appropriate interpreter services to assist that patient. And that patient was actually turned away for services. So that scenario is a classic case of inequitable care. That patient presented, they were accountable to request an interpreter, which they did. They knew their basic demographic information. However, the family member with them was not able to translate medical terms because, as a hospital, that is not appropriate due to translation errors and ultimately could turn into medical errors. So it's really important that patients are given the tools needed and also the rules that need to be followed from a healthcare standpoint. Some causes, consequences, and solutions. Some causes of healthcare inequity would be poverty rates, low physician density, which falls into rural areas, and how primary care is not heavily prone to rural areas, primarily more urban areas. Some consequences, um, obesity, diabetes, cancer, injury, high infant mortality, which we talked about, and premature deaths. So when patients do not receive the equitable care that they deserve, um, their health diminishes, and their long-term health just deteriorates over time when they do not have the resources needed. Some solutions. E-visits are really new and are really nice for people who may live in a rural area but have access to cell phones or telephones where they can actually video chat with a doctor. The doctor can diagnose certain minor things and also give prescriptions if needed. Mobile offices. So that's where a doctor's office mobily will go into different rural areas and hold office hours. So that can be really helpful. Additionally, continued education in the healthcare system by computer-based learning, having that be an annual requirement for employees is really important. Having community resources readily available. I know that it would be great to have pamphlets and flyers available for those who may have questions, or those who maybe have too much pride to ask. They can read those pamphlets. And also holding a zero tolerance policy towards discrimination of any kind. We definitely want to ensure that the individuals who may feel that they're not getting the care they need, they're not being discriminated against whatsoever. From a biblical perspective, it has been mentioned that, in the Bible, it's talked about leveling the playing field in so many words, and how Christians they need to ensure that, they're treating every single person not only equally, which is true, but assisting them with things that they may need. So that falls into the equity piece, and how, we're catering to the needs as Christians, we're catering to the needs of the community members around us. So I think it would be, important to complete a go and see on how those in the community are treated. Talk about what we notice. So maybe we can help out at a soup kitchen or donate clothes to Goodwill. Recently, I had delivered different toys and foods to family and children's services before the holidays. So as a Christian, just thinking about what can we do to not only make things equal amongst everyone, but from a patient perspective, what can we do to help them get the resources they need and the healthcare that they require as well. Any questions, please contact me at barkerc@cornerstone.edu. Thank you.